After binging Stranger Things Season 4, I am ready to talk some D&D and get super meta. But don't worry, I'll go light on the spoilers. Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And like I said in this D&D review video, I want to get a little meta. But don't worry, there is some good D&D and writing advice here to be had. As a brief follow-up to my Vecna video, first and foremost, I am happy that I was correct in calling Vecna as the big bad for Season 4, and he definitely wasn't a one-for-one retelling of the classic Dungeons & Dragons villain. However, the twists for this guy were exquisite, but what really caught me off guard was that Mike, Dustin, and Lucas actually played the Vecna campaign. It was a brilliant, nerdy, and subtle way to show how these boys have grown up since entering high school. Yeah, Lucas is trying to fit in with the jocks, but he still played through a large part of the campaign. What this means is that the boys who in Season 1, who would probably have never played so dark and dangerous a campaign as this, have grown in their confidence, their daring, and their sense of adventure. The scene where we see Mike and Dustin playing alongside Erica is especially telling of how they have grown up and gives us an inkling of how they will tackle their very real, very deadly campaign against the Upside Downs version of Vecna later on in this season. Now then, this got me thinking, what can we learn about ourselves, the players, by settling down for games of D&D? And how does this help us become better at playing the game? And how can this knowledge help novice writers? Well, here we go. Let's get meta! First of all, let's think about this. Who are you as a person? What do you bring to the table? What's your personality like? What are your strengths, your weaknesses, your likes, your dislikes? What kind of character do you want to play? Why do you want to play that character? Do you want to play a character who's basically a carbon copy of yourself? Or are you trying to escape into some fantasy role? Are you trying to challenge yourself with a brand new character? Are you exploring whole new possibilities that previously you were kind of scared of? Are you being adventurous? Are you curious about what this game is like? Are you doing this because you want to hang out with friends? Are you doing this to stick it to someone? Are you doing this because you happen to have a crush on someone? There are so many things that bring us to the table when it comes to playing Dungeons & Dragons. And this is something you need to be very conscious about. Who are you when you want to play this game? Why do you want to play this game? This is important right here because Dungeons & Dragons is all about collaborative storytelling. You are not the main character. You are not the hero of this story. Instead, you are working with everyone else there at the table. All of your friends or people that you've just gotten to meet who could potentially become your friends, the dungeon master, and you're working with yourself in order to create this awesome story. But that comes down a lot to who you are. Dungeons & Dragons is oftentimes a reflection of ourselves when we come to sit down at the table. Whether it be that we're playing a carbon copy of ourselves, or playing a fantasy version of ourselves, or we just want to play something that we've never done before, something that we're interested in. You'll find that as you continue to play Dungeons & Dragons, if you're paying attention to yourself, you'll see that there are elements of yourself leaking into your character, but you will also find that the game seems to reflect aspects of yourself right back at you. Your strengths, your weaknesses, your likes, your dislikes, and things that you are discovering about yourself and things that you are learning for the very first time. This is one of the neat things about the game Dungeons & Dragons. It's not just about the character you're playing, but it's also about you. And that's one of the things that can be so rewarding about playing this game, is that not only your character grows, but you, as the player, have a great opportunity to grow and to connect with so many people. And that leads me to the next point. What is key in Dungeons & Dragons is good communication. Remember what I said, you're not the main character, you're not the star of the game, you're working with everyone else, and as such, you must be able to communicate with everyone else within the game. By working together with the other players and with the other characters within the game, you are able to then to do this community storytelling, this collaborative storytelling, where you are all working together to make it through the Dungeon Master's story and to elevate and develop your characters. And remember what I said, if you really get into this game, you as a person grow as well. But that only works if you are properly communicating with other people. And this reminds me actually of one of the campaigns that I'm right now playing in, where I decided, you know what, I want a challenge. I like playing really big, strong characters or glass cannons. It's usually what I like to do. Let's get into the deep end right here and play a class that I'm not very comfortable with. I'm going to play a ranger. Woof. So I decided to play a ranger whose backstory is a little bit more angsty than what I usually do, where his entire village was wiped out. As far as he knows, he's the last dragonborn on Earth, and he's looking for his kind. It's a very interesting character to play, and I originally intended to roleplay him as a very somber, quiet character. But the people that I'm playing with love to joke, are very loud, both at the table and in character, and in order then to have good communication, I had to allow my character to talk more. Granted, I kept it in with his character, with who he is, but it's been fascinating to see how this character, who I intended to play as kind of just a very quiet, somber individual, has opened up and has become way more interesting as a result of that. And to me, someone who thinks a little bit meta about the game, what it came down to that is like, wow, it emphasized to me as the player how important it is to communicate with other people, and how it's a good thing to let down some of your barriers, let other people in, because they can really enrich your life. This, again, is one of the things that you can really learn as both the character and as the player while playing Dungeons & Dragons. So, positive communication. It is essential. I have said in the past that miscommunication is fine, but only so long as you work out those moments. It can be a great learning experience and a great opportunity to strengthen friendships at the table and within the game. Again, bettering yourself as the player. Now, here's the thing. We actually get to see this play out within Stranger Things Season 4. In the whole Vecna campaign that the guys play through, it requires some intense communication on their part. For one thing, they have to find a player who's going to replace Lucas on the night of the big game, but then when they bring in Erica, there's actually a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of great communication between Erica and Eddie, between Eddie and the players between each other, and it is just phenomenal. I loved that episode because that's really what D&D is like. A bunch of friends getting together, having a blast, doing crazy things, and just enjoying themselves. And that's the way that Dungeons & Dragons should be. And I love that Season 4 really brought that out, showing it's not just these boys being nerdy, but that D&D is about collaborative storytelling. It is about building a community. It is about communicating, working things out, and strengthening friendships both within and without the game. And that is brilliant. That's what we want to see in any story that uses role-playing games as a storytelling device, and that's something that we definitely want to see when you actually play Dungeons & Dragons. Now, I've been meta for long enough right here in this discussion, so let's actually get down to what this can actually do to help us out as novice writers. Well, I've brought this up before when I did my analysis of how different cartoons used D&D episodes. You see, I looked at how well they played the game. Was the game really all that important? Did it help move the plot along? But another thing that we should probably look at is how playing the game within any story helps to develop the characters themselves. And not just the characters they're playing within the game, but themselves. Your main characters. And that is something that you need to understand when it comes to using role-playing games as a storytelling element within a larger story. Is that you don't just want these things to be all like, here's a sign that these guys are super nerdy. There, I've established that they're nerds. We're moving on. We're never going to use this stuff again except to like make some weird like cheesy callbacks and some little Easter egg references. Ha! I'm a nerd. There are plenty of stories that do this, and to be quite honest, it's awful. I find myself asking, well, why is this even in here? I would like to know more, but you're not giving me more. It just all flitters away. And as a result, it just feels like it's being forced down my throat that these guys and gals are nerdy. Thank you. I already got that. Instead, I'd like to see how that nerdiness plays into their character development. So, if you are going to use role-playing games within your own stories to help establish who characters are, they should also be part of character realization, character growth. I've just seen way too many stories just simply use this thing as some sort of like, hey, here's some little nostalgia bait, or here's some nerd bait, or what have you, rather than using it to its fullest element. If the game Dungeons & Dragons can pull out so much growth for us as real people in real life, then it should be able to do the same within our stories. And that makes this storytelling tool way more powerful and also way more immersive, especially for those people who know these kinds of games and then can feel like they understand all the different layers of what's happening within your story. So as novice writers, this is something I would highly encourage if you write a story where there's role-playing elements within it. Let's see how characters grow by playing the game. I've done this only once with one novella that I wrote some years ago, and it's definitely full of problems and little holes, but one of the things that I'm definitely proud of when I look at it is how this game that I wrote into the novella really pulled out the character development for the guy who thinks he's the cool jock, and it also provided a chance for romance between two of the characters. Now, normally that doesn't usually happen when you're playing D&D. Sorry guys, it doesn't actually happen all that often, but you can write it in your fictional story. And if you do it well, if you show how characters are growing by playing the game, how they are communicating, and you get that romantic spark that suddenly flies, or a character suddenly realizes, hey, you know what, I've learned something about myself by playing this game, that right there, chef's kiss. It is amazing. That's the kind of stuff that we want to see when you add role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons to your stories. It really brings out something very real that resonates with many players, and it just makes them enjoy your story a whole lot more. So that's really all I have to say in this rather meta discussion of D&D. And if you're like, wow, Lars, I listened to you now for a little more than 10 minutes and I'm a little bit confused, then I invite you to sit down with some people and play some Dungeons & Dragons. And trust me, you will learn really quickly what is all going on right here, how this game just sucks you on in, how it's a mirror of yourself, and how it allows you to learn a whole lot about yourself and about other people and develop just great relationships and great communication skills. And if you're an author, these are things that you really need, because honestly, good communication, good teamwork, being able to understand yourself, self-reflection, all of these things are essential as a writer, both when you begin writing your story and especially during the editing process, because whoo boy, you are going to need support, you're going to need good communication, you're going to need to work with people, and you need to be able to self-reflect, because there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to have to fix from that first draft. But believe you me, it is worth it. So, with that all being said, go and play some Dungeons & Dragons, go out there, start writing your story, and if you can think of a story that can involve some great role-playing games, do it. And if you write it well, you will see how your characters develop phenomenally throughout the course of your story in a way that they might not have otherwise been able to achieve. It's really, really awesome. So that being said, if you're looking for more writing advice, please check out our other videos here on our YouTube channel. You can also check out more of our writing advice over at Camille's Harem, found on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, the works. We have writing exercises for all of you novice writers out there over at our Pinterest page, and we would love for you to join our ever-growing community of novice authors. Links for all that and more are down in the description. And until the next video, y'all, thank you for joining us on this adventure that we call writing, and tschüss.